Samantha Reed vanished without a trace after a bonfire party just hours later. Kevin Doyle, her obsessive ex-boyfriend, disappeared too. What began as a search for a missing teen spiraled into a nationwide manhunt when investigators uncovered a hidden chamber of horrors and a trail of victims stretching back years. This isn't just a story of survival, it's a real-life nightmare that no horror movie could ever match. The truth will chill you to your core. Samantha Reed was the kind of girl who lit up any room she entered. At 17, she had good grades, a close-knit group of friends, and dreams of studying journalism after graduation. She lived in Dalton Creek, a small town where crime was rare and neighbors knew each other by name. On the night of her disappearance, she attended a bonfire party by the lake, a popular gathering spot for teens celebrating the start of fall. It was just another harmless night in a town that didn't worry about danger. The bonfire was loud and crowded. Music echoed off the trees, and the lake reflected the firelight. Samantha had arrived with a few girlfriends, texting her sister around 9 p.m. to say she'd be home by midnight. That message would be the last anyone received from her. When she didn't return home, her parents assumed she'd stayed the night with a friend, but by morning her phone went straight to voicemail. None of her friends had heard from her since the party ended. Panic began to build. Her mother called the police around 11 a.m., and by that afternoon, Samantha was officially reported missing. The first real clue came from a jogger who found a single pink flip-flop near the edge of Green Hollow Forest, an area known for its dense trees and winding trails. It wasn't far from the lake. Police secured the area and launched a full-scale search. Volunteers combed through the underbrush while dogs picked up a faint scent that led deeper into the woods. By sunset, more items surfaced: Samantha's backpack, torn notebook pages, and a scarf with smudges of what looked like blood. Her friends were interviewed, and a picture began to form. Samantha had seemed nervous that night, looking over her shoulder as if someone was watching her. One name came up repeatedly: Kevin Doyle, a 19-year-old who had briefly dated her months earlier. He had shown up at the bonfire uninvited and left before it ended. Friends described him as intense and jealous, someone who didn't handle rejection well. When police went to speak with Kevin at his trailer on the edge of town, they found the place abandoned. His car was gone, his phone disconnected. Kevin Doyle had vanished. The peaceful image of Dalton Creek shattered overnight. The town was now the center of a disturbing mystery, and the search for Samantha Reed had just begun. 2 days after Samantha Reed vanished, a park ranger filed a report about a damaged window at an old, unused hunting cabin deep within Green Hollow Forest. The cabin, tucked behind thick pine trees and overgrown brush, hadn't been registered for public use in years. Police immediately responded. What they found inside escalated the case from a missing person search to a suspected abduction, and possibly something worse. The interior of the cabin was unsettling. Large plastic sheets were taped to the floor and walls. In one corner, a metal chair was bolted to the floor. Duct tape, rope, and a bottle of sedatives were scattered nearby. The air was heavy with the smell of bleach. But it hadn't covered everything. A dark, dried stain marked one corner of the cabin, later confirmed to be blood. Most disturbing of all was Samantha's phone, found shattered beneath a pile of firewood. Forensics recovered a partially damaged video on the device. It showed Samantha running through the woods at night, breathless and clearly terrified. The screen shook wildly, and her voice was hard to make out, but she appeared to be calling for help. The video ended abruptly with a loud thud and the camera going dark. Not far from the cabin, investigators found a backpack buried beneath a layer of moss. Inside were Samantha's belongings, along with a printed map marked with red X1. Near the lake, another near the cabin. Police now believe these locations were part of a pre-planned route, mapped out by someone who had studied the area carefully. Attention returned to Kevin Doyle, his prior behavior, recent disappearance, and now the connection to the forest cabin made him the prime suspect. A warrant was issued for his arrest. Authorities expanded their search across county lines. His photo was broadcast on the news and tip lines were flooded with calls. But Kevin was nowhere to be found. Samantha's disappearance no longer felt like a single tragic event. It looked like the work of someone calculating and dangerous. The community held its breath, unsure if she was still alive or if time had already run out. As investigators intensified their search for Kevin Doyle, they began looking deeper into his past, hoping to uncover patterns that could explain his sudden disappearance and possible connection to Samantha's case. What they found sent shockwaves through both law enforcement and the community. Kevin had a long history of behavioral issues. He had spent most of his childhood in foster care after his biological parents lost custody due to neglect and substance abuse. Records revealed multiple reports from previous foster homes describing Kevin as disturbed obsessed, with dark books, collecting sharp objects, and showing no remorse for hurting animals. But because none of his actions escalated to violent crime, he was never formally charged. The real breakthrough came when investigators visited an old farmhouse, where Kevin had lived for nearly 4 years with a previous foster family. The house, now owned by a new couple, had recently undergone renovations. The current owners had reported a foul odor coming from a section of the barn floor. Thinking it might be mold or a dead animal, police conducted a deeper search. What they found was horrifying. Beneath a loose section of the floorboards, they uncovered a concealed pit containing old clothing, jewelry, and what was later confirmed to be human remains, bone fragments belonging to at least 3 young females. One of the necklaces matched a girl who had gone missing from a neighboring county 6 years earlier. Her case, like the others, had gone cold. But now, it had a suspect. Even more disturbing were the other items hidden in the pit. Investigators found newspaper clippings about unsolved disappearances, handwritten notes describing abductions in chilling detail, and a list of names, some crossed out, some not. Samantha's name was on that list. With this discovery, it became clear that Kevin Doyle was not just a troubled young man. He was a serial predator who had slipped through the cracks for years. Each town he lived in held its own mystery, its own victim. And now authorities believed Samantha had become the latest target in a long, horrifying pattern. The hunt for Kevin was no longer local, it was national. The FBI joined the case, but despite the new evidence, he continued to evade capture. He knew how to disappear. He had done it before, and somewhere out there, he was still free. 3 weeks after Samantha Reed vanished, hope was beginning to fade. Then, against all odds, a driver spotted a barefoot girl stumbling along a rural road nearly 40 miles from Dalton Creek. Her face was bruised, her clothes torn, and she was visibly dehydrated and shaking. It was Samantha. She was alive. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors treated her for malnutrition, bruises, and signs of prolonged restraint. Once stable, she shared the terrifying details of her captivity. Kevin had taken her to an abandoned factory, deep in the woods, a place hidden behind barbed wire and brush inside. She was kept in a crawl space beneath the floor, bound and blindfolded for days. Samantha said Kevin barely spoke. He kept her sedated most of the time, feeding her just enough to keep her alive. But one night, the generator failed. Kevin left the building for several hours, and during that time, she managed to loosen the ropes and crawl to freedom. She wandered for hours through the woods, unsure of where she was, until she reached the road where she was found. Her escape reignited the investigation. With the new information, law enforcement searched the factory and confirmed everything she had said. Evidence of her captivity was their ropes, empty food wrappers, and signs of recent habitation. A camera tripod and a laptop, both missing, suggested Kevin had filmed parts of her imprisonment. Despite the breakthrough, Kevin had vanished again. He had left behind no digital trail, no fingerprints, and no known destination. The FBI reissued a nationwide alert and updated his wanted poster with a new age-progressed sketch. The country now knew his name, but catching him would be a far greater challenge than anyone imagined. Months passed after Samantha's escape, but Kevin Doyle was never found. Despite nationwide efforts, sightings, and tips from across the country, He seemed to vanish without a trace. Investigators believed he had planned for this moment all along. He had changed his identity before, lived off the grid, and left behind no digital footprint. It was as if he had disappeared into the shadows. Samantha, though physically safe, faced a long road to recovery. The trauma of what she had endured didn't end with her rescue. She suffered from nightmares, anxiety, and fear of being alone, but she was determined not to let Kevin win. With therapy, support from her family, and her own strength, she began speaking out. She gave interviews to raise awareness about missing persons and survival. She helped other families who had lost someone, giving them hope that it was still possible to find answers. A year after her rescue, a memorial was built near the road where she was found. It wasn't just for Samantha, it honored the victims discovered beneath the farmhouse, and the many girls whose names appeared in Kevin's notes. It became a place for reflection, grief, and resilience. The FBI continues to list Kevin Doyle as one of its most wanted fugitives. They believe he may still be alive, living under a new identity, possibly in a remote area or blending in with another small town. His story is featured in true crime documentaries, podcasts, and news specials. Yet no rest has been made. To this day, Samantha's survival is considered a miracle. She became the voice for those who were silenced, and the mystery of Kevin Doyle, the predator who haunted small towns and vanished like smoke, remains one of the most chilling unsolved manhunts in modern history.